You're watching PM Agenda. Time to bring in Grahame Morris and Bruce Hawker, our two political strategists, for their thoughts on day of drama here in Canberra. Grahame, to you first. What do you make of this result, 39-61?
Well, it was certainly too big to be laughed off and not big enough for anyone to be knocked off. You know, look, a few of them talked to me. You know, not many, but a few did. And there were a few in that group who wanted a spill, who just wanted something to happen and for it to be discussed. So they weren't particularly anti-Tony Abbott, they just wanted the whole thing discussed. Conversely, in the Tony Abbott sort of number were a few people who thought, look, give him a go. His press club stuff about involving families and small business and the economic management, that was good stuff, and we'd like to give him time to flesh that out and just see how he's going to do it. And look, I think that's right. I think his own future is in his own hands. Everyone knows that there's something in there about a family package and a small business package. The hard thing is that there's no money. And sort of everyone wants him to re-engage with the backbench, but particularly to re-engage with the community, with mums and dads. And yeah, that is quite hard if the economic stuff is not much good. But there are an enormous number of people there who are prepared, with goodwill, are prepared to give him a go and hope that he does flesh out what he said at the press club in a policy sense, yeah, but also in the involvement of others in the decision-making process.
You've nailed what really is the policy. A dilemma now. He's made it clear he wants to offer something to families and small business, but they're also still using the same rhetoric about the need for budget repair. I mean, how do you do both?
Look, I honestly don't know, and particularly the stuff which says that we're not going to hurt people's family budgets in the economic budget. Well, that does restrain any sort of reform, which has made some other people a bit toey.
Like the big business community, because you can hit them up again.
Oh yeah, but they don't, you know, they're very important in running the country and providing jobs, but there's not many votes in that.
Exactly.
Look. It is hard, and it's hard for anyone, whoever is leader or treasurer. But that's where we're at. Is people are saying, and PM, we think you're on the right track there. Show us how to do it. And the magic thing, you know, it all comes back to self-preservation in politics, and that is, if you can re-engage with families and the community, then the polls will lift, then the backbench will be happy. The reverse is also true.
Well, that's right. It can become self-perpetuating whichever way. Bruce Hawker, you've seen a lot of these things, these contests over the years. What did you make of the actual result, and where do you think it leaves Tony Abbott?
Look, I tend to agree with Grahame on this. You know, it was a neither here nor there result, which is really very bad for him at the end of the day. If he'd had a big win, then he could have seen it off. If it had been a spill motion pass, then we wouldn't have him as Prime Minister today. So it's good news for Labor. But I also think that a lot of people inside the caucus were probably thinking, we'll give this guy another 6 months to see how he goes. Because why 6 months? Because that means that at the end of that period, there'll be exactly 12 months to the election, time enough for a new Prime Minister to establish a relationship with the electorate. I think that's very much their thinking. If there's one thing that they've probably learned from the Labor years of disunity, which seem to be repeated here, is that you do need time to re-establish yourself, something which Gillard didn't have when she took over from Rudd. She had less than 100 days to the election, and Rudd didn't have when he took over again from Gillard. He had 74 days to election day.
Yeah, that's a good point. Time is still on Tony Abbott's side here, isn't it? I mean, another 18 months plus before the next election is due, Bruce. what I've been reporting is what the critics and supporters of Tony Abbott have been saying in the wake of this ballot this morning, that he will be given time. They want to give him clear air, particularly deliver the next budget in May, and then probably make another look at it in June and see how things are travelling.
I think that's really good timing. And if you were Malcolm Turnbull or even Julie Bishop, who I think has used Malcolm as a bit of a stalking horse today, you'd be more than happy with that outcome. In fact, 12 months is probably better than 18 months.
Yeah, how do you see that time factor going, Grahame? What sort of time do you think Tony Abbott has to turn this around?
I have said all along on this program and to any of the politicians who talk to me, is that all of this stuff today was way too soon. The party outside the parliament was not ready for this. The colleagues weren't quite ready. You know, and the Prime Minister had just been through a period where he said, look, I've listened to the message, and it just seemed to me, give him a fair go until at least Christmas. You know, that is fair time. If this is still going in election year, I will personally kneecap people. But certainly a fair go till Christmas, and to start to turn things around, to get the message right, to do the stuff with families.
You really reckon he get that long if the polls don't pick up?
Well, he should. He should. You know, the idea that, hey, we're going to turn this around in a month or 2 months, just plain silly.
So you reckon 11 months MPs are willing to cop this sort of a full year of polls like this?
Well, as I say, self-preservation becomes all-embracing in these sorts of things, and, you know, several bad polls and everyone gets spooked and away we go again. But it's not fair. I don't think it's even fair to Malcolm Turnbull. You know, if Malcolm wanted to have a go, he sort of needs to think about what would be the policy nuances, who would be the new people, what would his staff look like, what is the reason for the change. And, you know, I still think Malcolm's behaviour has been exemplary. Anyone who runs around and said, hey, this is orchestrated by Malcolm Turnbull, you know, needs a smack in the head. Yeah. He has behaved fantastically.
Yeah, well, Michael Kroger
has been some grumpy people on the back bench. It got a bit of a roll on. They got to the edge of the cliff and said, whoa, what are we doing here?
Yeah, Michael Kroger made the point earlier, it has been very civil. People have been actually pretty polite to each other for a leadership contest of sorts, Bruce.
Well, that is right. And remember the damage the Liberal Party in opposition did with all the quotes from the Labor Party leadership where they were screaming at each other.
Didn't have an alternative candidate declared here, Bruce, which made all the difference. But, you know, behind the scenes, there are plenty of bruises coming out of this. Plenty of people saying, I reckon he / she voted for the spill. A lot of fingers being pointed. That's understandable. That's to be expected, though, isn't it? At the end of the day, you think they'll all be grown-ups and move on from this, or do you think there'll be this sort of animosity lingering?
Well, if they're sensible, there won't be any outpourings of public animosity, that's for sure, as we saw in the case of Rudd's removal, which was just so damaging both to him and to the party generally. I think what this demonstrates, though, David, is that regicide is a very, very difficult crime to commit. You know, it takes a lot to remove an elected Prime Minister, and we can argue, of course, that he was not elected by the people of Australia but just by his electorate, but the truth is he was elected by the people of Australia, and I think people did pause before they were ready to move against him in the way in which some wanted to. But I think it's only a delay in his execution unless he can really change the way in which he operates. And one of the things that they might think about doing is getting Grahame Morris to go down to his office and act as a liaison between him and the backbench. Because you need somebody with some gravitas, who's worked for a Prime Minister before, who's done that sort of work, who can actually mend some bridges which desperately need to be mended.
A quick response on that.
Ignore that. I find nowadays this sort of unreality television where you can vote off a leader every 12 months just bizarre. Yeah. But that's what's happening.
It is. Well, Grahame Morris, Bruce Hawker, good to get your thoughts today, and we'll catch up again with you soon. Thanks for that.
Pleasure.
Let's take a break. Back with more on PM Agenda.